If you're a true Raiders fan, buckle up, because this one's about to get wild. Terry McLaurin, yes, Scary Terry, has just been linked to the Las Vegas Raiders by none other than Fox Sports. And if that sentence doesn't raise your eyebrows, maybe this will. A deal isn't just a fantasy. It might be closer to reality than you think. Now, before we dive into the details of how this trade could shake up the entire AFC West, if you bleed silver and black, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and punch that bell icon so you never miss breaking news like this. All right, let's move on to what's next. Think about this. Terry McLaurin is one of the most underrated and underappreciated wide receivers in the NFL. He's played through a carousel of coaches and quarterbacks, and yet, year after year, he delivers. Last season, a career-high 13 touchdowns, all while helping groom a rookie quarterback in Washington. And here's the kicker. Fox Sports listed Las Vegas as the perfect landing spot for McLaurin in their recent article. One perfect landing spot for each NFL minicamp holdout. We're not just talking rumors. We're talking potential. Imagine this man lining up in silver and black. Imagine the options it opens for the offense. If that doesn't get your heart racing just a bit, maybe it's time to check your pulse. Let's be honest, this trade might sound like a long shot, maybe even a 1% chance. But if history has taught us anything, it's this. Never rule anything out in the NFL, especially not with the Las Vegas Raiders. Think back. Nobody expected the Raiders to pull off the blockbuster for Davante Adams, yet it happened. And now, the buzz is building around Terry McLaurin potentially donning the silver and black. According to Fox Sports, Vegas could be a dream destination for the star receiver, and here's why. The Raiders have built a foundation that's brimming with potential, but one more elite weapon could turn that spark into a firestorm. Fox's logic is simple. Instead of gambling on the draft again, why not send a pick or two to Washington and lock in McLaurin during his prime? Pair him with Brock Bowers, Ashton Jeanty, and Jakobi Meyers, and suddenly, you've got a unit that could go toe-to-toe with any offense in the AFC West. Actually, scratch that. They wouldn't just compete, they'd dominate. Just picture it. A hard-hitting back like Jeanty A mismatch nightmare in Bowers 2 versatile wideouts in Meyers and McLaurin. That's not just firepower, that's balance, speed, and experience all rolled into one. And with this new regime at the helm, everything points to building a squad that can win now. Yes, it's unlikely, but every great trade starts as a crazy idea, until it's not. And when you hear the behind-the-scenes connections, you might start to believe it could happen. Let's talk about why a blockbuster deal for Terry McLaurin might not be so far-fetched, especially if you follow the one thing that often drives these moves: NFL connections. There's a strong link between Dan Quinn, the current leader of the Raiders, and Pete Carroll, the longtime Seahawks coach. These two worked side by side for 6 years in Seattle, and in the NFL, relationships like that matter, especially when it comes to massive trades. Think about it. If a move like this is ever going to go down, it usually takes some mutual trust. Dan Quinn has gone on record more than once saying how much Pete Carroll meant to his career. So, if Carroll and Quinn can align on the value of this trade, that might just grease the wheels. And this isn't just about sentiment, it's about needs. The Raiders have been clear. They want a true wide receiver one. Jakobi Meyers has been solid, possibly one of the league's most underrated targets. But behind him, the roster is still developing. Yes, Trey Tucker has flashed. Dante Thornton Jr. has upside. And Jack Beck is an exciting young name. But when the Raiders explored a move for DK Metcalf earlier this offseason, that said everything. You don't try to trade for a star like DK unless you feel that one piece could change your offense. And here's the part most people overlook. DK himself said he wanted to play in Vegas. That tells you something. It tells you this coaching staff has built a place where elite receivers want to play. So, if the Raiders had the door cracked open for DK, is it really that hard to imagine Terry McLaurin walking through it? And with Vegas already holding a dynamic core, Meyers, Tucker, Beck, and now even Tommy Mellott stepping up, the idea of adding McLaurin transforms this unit from promising to dangerous. Now here's a real question. What if the Raiders aren't sold on extending Jakobi Meyers? He's been reliable, no doubt. But if the front office sees him as a strong number 2 and not a true number 1, then a move for someone like Terry McLaurin suddenly makes all the sense in the world. It's not just about talent, it's about timing. McLaurin isn't skipping practices for no reason. He wants a major extension, and that's exactly why his name is floating around in trade rumors. Let's be clear. Washington has the cap flexibility to make something work, but they've been non-committal so far. Meanwhile, the Raiders are in a position to act. They have the financial room to not just trade for McLaurin, but to pay him the kind of top-tier money he's looking for. And that number? Think $30 to $33 million per year. That's what it will take, because anything less. And McLaurin's agent isn't doing his job. The market is exploding for wide receivers, and McLaurin deserves to be in that elite bracket. So, the question becomes simple. If the Raiders are ready to invest in a true number 1 WR for the long run, is Terry McLaurin worth that top 10 money? Look at the numbers. Look at the consistency. Even in a rotating QB circus in Washington, the man produced year after year. And if durability matters to this front office, McLaurin checks that box too. So, yeah, he might not get the same headlines as some flashier names, but in terms of value, skill, and professionalism, he might just be the exact weapon this Vegas offense needs to take the next leap. Now, here's a real question. What if the Raiders aren't sold on extending Jakobi Meyers? He's been reliable, no doubt. But if the front office sees him as a strong number, 2 and not a true number, 1, then a move for someone like Terry McLaurin suddenly makes all the sense in the world. It's not just about talent, it's about timing. McLaurin isn't skipping practices for no reason. He wants a major extension, and that's exactly why his name is floating around in trade rumors. Let's be clear, Washington has the cap flexibility to make something work, but they've been non-committal so far. Meanwhile, the Raiders are in a position to act. They have the financial room to not just trade for McLaurin, but to pay him the kind of top-tier money he's looking for. And that number? Think $30 to $33 million per year. That's what it will take, because anything less. And McLaurin's agent isn't doing his job. The market is exploding for wide receivers, and McLaurin deserves to be in that elite bracket. So, the question becomes simple. If the Raiders are ready to invest in a true number 1 WR for the long run, is Terry McLaurin worth that top 10 money? Look at the numbers. Look at the consistency. Even in a rotating QB circus in Washington, the man produced year after year. And if durability matters to this front office, McLaurin checks that box too. So, yeah, he might not get the same headlines as some flashier names, but in terms of value, skill, and professionalism, he might just be the exact weapon this Vegas offense needs to take the next leap. Terry McLaurin may not be the flashiest name in the league, but let's not get it twisted. He's a true number 1 receiver. And when you consider how he'd complement this Raiders offense alongside Brock Bowers and Jakobi Meyers, the result could be one of the most dynamic units in the AFC. But let's talk strategy. With the uncertainty surrounding Christian Wilkins' health, the Raiders might be facing a deeper challenge on defense than expected. Rumors suggest he may need another surgery, but even if he avoids it, his performance could still be limited. So, what do you do if you're the front office? You double down on your strength, offense. If you can't guarantee defensive dominance, you make sure you can outscore almost anyone. That's where McLaurin changes everything. You go from aiming for 24 points a game to potentially dropping 30-plus consistently. With his speed, reliability, and chemistry potential, McLaurin would instantly elevate the Raiders' scoring ceiling. Let's be real. A below-average defense paired with an elite offense still gives you a real playoff shot. And if you're questioning the cost, the Raiders could always free up space by restructuring deals, including Wilkins, and push for that final offensive piece. But here's the biggest reason this trade fits perfectly. It aligns with the Raiders' long-term plan. This team is clearly building to peak in 2026 and 2027. McLaurin is 28. He's entering his prime. Bring him in now, let this core develop chemistry, and when that Super Bowl window opens, you're not just knocking. You're breaking the door down. Terry McLaurin isn't just a flashy addition. He fits perfectly into the Raiders' long-term blueprint. You're getting him in his prime, likely on a deal spanning 3 or 4 years. And that lines up with the contracts of the key figures steering this franchise. The Raiders' leadership has made it clear they're building for a sustained run. From the front office to the field, this roster is being shaped with 2026 and 2027 in mind. Bringing in McLaurin now means you're aligning him with the timelines of Geno Smith, Max Crosby, and the entire core. And here's the question worth asking. If the Raiders truly viewed Jakobi Meyers as their long-term WR1, wouldn't an extension already be on the table? Maybe the hesitation isn't about doubt, but about something bigger. Maybe they're holding back because a bigger splash is in the works, one that brings in a player like McLaurin to headline this offense. Now, let's talk about what a potential deal could look like. I've pulled together 3 trade scenarios that could realistically get this done, one from a Commanders insider, one from a league analyst, and one from my own perspective based on what makes sense for the Raiders' current path. Let's kick it off with the Commanders' side. In this proposal, Washington receives Jakobi Meyers, Tyree Wilson, and a 2026 second-round pick. That's a substantial offer, and here's the upside. No first-round pick is involved. If the Raiders can land McLaurin without giving up a first, that's a win. And frankly, if Jakobi is on the bubble for an extension anyway, and Tyree Wilson hasn't cemented himself as a cornerstone yet, flipping them for a proven, elite receiver could be the aggressive move that pushes this team into serious contention. Let's get into the trade mechanics. There's a real chance that Washington might hesitate to pay Terry McLaurin the $30+ million he's seeking. But if they could flip him and pay Jakobi Meyers closer to $15 million, that might be more appealing from a cap standpoint. Now look at it from the Raiders' perspective. Their most pressing roster need right now? Edge rusher. And including Tyree Wilson, a former top 10 pick, could make sense for both sides. Wilson still has untapped potential, and with Dan Quinn's deep ties to the Dallas Cowboys, an organization Wilson's style fits well, it's easy to imagine Quinn believing he could unlock something special. Now, let's explore 3 potential trade offers. First scenario, Commanders insider idea. Raiders receive Terry McLaurin. Commanders receive Jakobi Meyers, Tyree Wilson, 2026 second-round pick. It's a bold deal, but it keeps Las Vegas first-round picks intact while exchanging 2 players with real value. Second scenario, based on the DK Metcalf deal, Raiders receive McLaurin plus 6th-round pick. Commanders receive 2nd-round pick plus 7th-round pick. A simpler package mirroring a proven trade model. No players involved, just picks. Clean, direct, and doable. Third scenario, custom Raiders proposal. Raiders send 2nd-round pick plus 5th-round compensatory pick plus wide receiver Trey Tucker plus edge rusher Tyree Wilson. This version avoids parting with Jakobi Meyers and instead offers Trey Tucker, a young speedster who's shown promise in the offseason. While Tucker doesn't carry the same value as Meyers, his upside and low cost could appeal to Washington, especially as they juggle finances after acquiring Deebo Samuel, another slot-heavy player. The inclusion of compensatory picks, which Vegas is projected to receive, gives the Raiders flexibility to get creative without mortgaging their future. At the end of the day, if the goal is to maximize this team's potential before the Super Bowl window opens, then striking a deal for Terry McLaurin, using surplus assets and smart cap planning, might be the move that gets the Raiders over the top.